Hello again everyone, and welcome to the extra entries of our community-collaborated Rockman EXE Iceberg Chart. This video will detail some trivia that was added after the initial chart was completed, contributed by some of our new viewers, as well as entries that should have been on the iceberg initially, but weren't for one reason or another. If you're watching this, then I assume you've already seen the previous videos detailing the Rockman EXE Iceberg Charts in question. If not, I'll have a link to all 4 of the previous iceberg videos in the description, so you can catch up before watching this video. This is going to be a bit less formulaic than the previous videos, however, because I'm still making edits to the chart. The new entries are not being read in any particular order, but I will add them to where I think they should go on the chart, and they will be put there during the updated and compiled final iceberg video. And now, let's dive back in once again and uncover some more trivia surrounding Mega Man Battle Network. The Woodman Glitch. There's an unfortunate glitch in Battle Network 4 if you play the game on a Nintendo DS or DS Lite. During the Woodman scenario, in the part of the game where you have to dodge the giant wooden spikes in the park area, for some reason, if the game is being played on a DS system, the game will experience severe lag in the overworld, but the game returns to normal speed when you enter a battle. I've heard reports that if the glitch lasts long enough, then it can cause the game to just completely crash or even damage save data, but I can't confirm these claims. As far as I'm aware, this bug was fixed in the Virtual Console version of the game, and will almost certainly be fixed in the Legacy Collection version. The glitch is decently well known by those who played the initial release, but was fixed in the re-releases, so I think this belongs on the second tier. Robot Master Judgeman. While the design of Judgeman EXE is exclusive to the Battle Network series and is based on a fan-submitted Navi named Bookman, there does exist a classic series counterpart that shares the name. In the manga Megamix, during the Ultimate Robot Championship, we can see this scale-shaped robot under the name of Judgeman. Unfortunately, Judgeman, along with Buildman, get torched by Flameman, so they clearly didn't win this tournament. This is a pretty obscure connection, so I think it should go on tier 9. Soul Battler Takeshi. This is one character that has never had a physical appearance in the games, but he shows up on the BBS boards. As a character, he's based on one of the real-life announcers for official tournaments held by Capcom. As an announcer, he has had various outfits at different tournaments. He also had a commentary appearance in the Rockman EXE 15 Shunin Arranged Best Tracks, commenting for the EXE 4.5 track. There's also an e-reader card that featured the character. I wonder if he'll have an appearance in the Legacy Collection, maybe as an announcer for the online multiplayer mode, similar to how Ribita does for the tournaments in EXE 4.5. This seems very middle of the road in terms of obscurity, since the character never makes a physical appearance in-game, but the name is tossed around quite a bit, so I think this belongs on tier 5. Blinking Statue. In Battle Network 4, when you go to Yumland, you find a giant Buddha statue that has a cyber world. If you wait long enough, the statue blinks. Yeah, its eyes open and close. Why is this a thing? Why creep us out like this? It's not super obscure, but it's also not very discussed, so I'll say it goes on tier 4. 11th Chip Glitch. If you exploit the Navi Customizer in Battle Network 3 by attaching enough programs that allow for extra battle chips to be used on the custom screen, as well as using custom style, you can actually surpass the 10-chip selection limit that's normally in play. During this glitch, whatever battle chip is placed at the second slot of your folder will now be selectable as an 11th chip, though not visible on the custom screen. Select any given chip and then cycle the cursor to the right, past the 10th chip, and to the inactive Add button and press A. Now, you have an 11th chip, which can be selected every turn as well as being manipulated again as the second chip in your folder. Like with other glitches we've talked about, I'm sure this one will be patched out when the Legacy Collection is released. This is a very well-known glitch, and honestly should have been on the iceberg this entire time. I think it goes on tier 2. Robot Master Clockman? Technically, there is no official Robot Master Clockman, but there are some robots who could be seen as Clockman EXE's predecessors. While Clockman EXE's design was taken from a fan submission for a Mega Man Star Force character, in some of the side games for the classic series, we get Time Man in Mega Man Powered Up, which is a remake of the first Mega Man game on PSP, and the Clockmen from Rockman and Forte Challenger from the Future for WonderSwan. The Clockmen have the ability to time travel, like Clockman EXE does, and while the idea itself was recycled, I don't think that this had a direct influence on the villain of Operation Shooting Star. It's kind of like how Clown Man exists in Mega Man 8, but has no Navi counterpart, with the closest successors being Color Man and Circus Man, even if the latter was taken from a fan submission as well. Not a lot of people outside Japan know of the Rockman and Forte sequel, so I think this should probably go on tier 8. Liberation Warp Glitch. In early releases of the Japanese version of Rockman EXE 5, there was a bug that can act as a wrong warp and put you in a location you're not supposed to be. If your max HP was a specific value, and then you enter and exit a liberation mission, you will be warped somewhere else. When you jack out, Mega Man is no longer in the PET, so you can't jack in. This softlocks the game and you have to reset. There's a list of buggy values on the Rockman EXE Zone, as you can see here. The glitch only exists in the Japanese GBA version of Rockman EXE 5 and was fixed for the Virtual Console release. Additionally, there's one glitch discovered by Hero Ron where the game soft locks on completion if you don't save at all, with the game freezing during the final cinematic. The glitch does work in the English version. The Wrong Warp glitch is a Japanese exclusive and wasn't a problem outside Japan, so I think it's not as well known to those who don't search for it. I think this should go on tier 6. New Game 100. This is another rumor from back in the day. Every time you completed the game by defeating Duo and saving your game, when you select New Game Plus again, a number increments next to your continue option on the title screen. It's been rumored that if you reach the number 100, or beat the game with 99 next to the continue option, that your entire save file will be erased because the counter cannot increment higher than 99. As far as I'm aware, nobody has actually proven this. I may be up to the challenge someday though, since I'm already sitting at 12 completions on my file on Blue Moon, and I actually like Battle Network 4 enough to play through it multiple times. Maybe someday I'll attempt this, but no promises. This one was pointed out to us by a Reddit user after posting part 1 of the community collaborated Iceberg, and it seems that some people talked about it back in the day, but not a lot nowadays, so I'd say this is about mid-level obscurity. Tier 5. Pharaohman EXE's Operator. In every piece of media containing Pharaohman.exe, he's always depicted as a solo Navi, even going so far as to declare himself as the supreme solo net Navi in the anime.
I, Pharaohman, proclaim that I am the one true supreme solo net Navi.
However, on page 130 of the Mega Man Battle Network Complete Works, we can see concept art for his operator, who is a masked figure. While this operator never appears in the game, it does support the idea that maybe some of the so-called solo Navis do in fact have operators. The masked battler for solo Navi concept was actually reused in the anime, as mentioned previously, with Stone Man and Blaster Man's fake operators being disguised robots. Not many people would expect Pharaohman to have an operator, and I wasn't aware of it until it was pointed out to me. I say this belongs on tier 4. Extinct Viruses. So you may have noticed that in between games, sometimes battle chip art will change. There will be art of a virus that is used to give us certain battle chips, but in other games, the image is grayed out. This lends to the idea that certain viruses were deleted to extinction, as referred to in the BBS in Battle Network 2, when talking about the bagworm virus. This was the developer's way of reducing the amount of battle chips, but still including them. Some of the best examples are Mine, Tornado, Trident, and Air Hockey, all of whom had their own battle chip series in their debut games, with 3 versions of the chip in question, but after the debut, they were reduced down to having only 1 chip. Some viruses that seem to have returned from so-called extinction are the handy viruses, which give us the Time Bomb battle chips, as they were in Battle Networks 1 and 2, but were absent from 3 and 4, only to return in Battle Network 5, the Piranha viruses, which only appeared in Battle Networks 1 and 6, but yield different battle chips in the final game, and the Billy viruses, which appeared in Battle Networks 1 and 4, both times yielding the Thunder battle chips. Other viruses that were absent from some games but returned with different battle chips include the Bug Tanks from Battle Network 5, previously called B-Tanks, and the Volgear, which used to give us Fire Tower in Battle Network 1, gives us Flame Line in Battle Network 4. However, these last 2 viruses never got grayed out battle chips. This concept isn't really game-changing and is decently well known, or at the very least, it's not surprising. I say tier 3. Event battle chips. Ever since the first game, there were event-exclusive battle chips. They were obtained either by attending events hosted by Capcom or by sending your cartridge into Capcom when they offered the service. These types of battle chips include Base in Battle Network 1, Base and Rogue in Operation Shooting Star, Gospel and Gate SP in Battle Network 2, and Punk and Base GS in Battle Network 3. As far as I'm aware, the rest of the event chips were e-reader exclusives, like Duo, Grand Prix Power, Chaos Lord, Leader's Raid, the Psy Beasts, and Double Beasts. I could be mistaken though. While the secret chips themselves are seemingly common knowledge, the legitimate method of acquiring them may not be, so it's a little more obscure. I think this should be on tier 4. Dragon Ball references. There are a few instances that seem like they could be references to Dragon Ball. In the NT Warrior Super Legend bonus chapter of the manga, Mega Man and Proto Man drop off their limiters and start moving faster, similar to how Goku and Piccolo remove heavy clothes before fighting. Of course, this also looks like a reference to Naruto, where Rock Lee drops his weights, given that they make giant craters when they hit the ground. The scene in the anime where Electric Man drags Magnet Man into Mega Man's attack is similar to how Goku held Raditz in place so that Piccolo could hit him with Special Beam Cannon. In both cases, the protagonists were injured and weakened, and the victory required one of the heroes to sacrifice themselves. These may or may not actually be references, but I haven't heard many people make mentions of such correlations. But anime referencing other anime is not new by any stretch. However, because I haven't heard anyone other than the one who submitted this talk about it, I think it should go further down. Tier 8 seems about right. Undubbed anime seasons. As I've stated several times before, the rest of the Rockman EXE anime after Access never made it outside Japan. The stream arc more or less follows the plot of Battle Network 4 and 5, with the main antagonists being Duo and Dr. Regal, though they're not working together, and several villains of the week are characters from Battle Networks 3 through 5. The Beast arc is based on Battle Network 6, but takes several liberties, and has the cast jumping to an alternate universe to battle Gregor and Falzar, while the final season, Beast Plus, uses the remaining enemies from Battle Network 6 that didn't show up in Beast, as well as using characters from Phantom of the Network. Oddly, I still see a few people nowadays who aren't aware that there are more seasons beyond Access, so I think this is a little more obscure than expected. That said, I still think it should go somewhere around Tier 4. Game console references. Since these games were first released on a Nintendo console, it's no surprise that we will see several references to various other Nintendo consoles. We see that Dex has a GameCube and some Game Boy Advances, an NES, a Super Famicom, and a GBA SP. Lan also has a Game Boy Micro and a Nintendo DS. But there are other game console references as well. In Battle Network 2, in the last area of the mother computer, you can see a large purple GameCube logo that's part of the texture of the level. In addition to that, the aesthetic of the Undernet actually looks kind of like the original Xbox, like the green circles and the black rectangles, even with the ribbed textures. If this wasn't deliberate, then this is one heck of a coincidence. On that note, why has the Legacy Collection not been confirmed for Xbox yet? Since we see some consoles in just about every game, I'd say this isn't super obscure. Tier 2. Movie parodies. A few times in the games and anime, we hear about some movie and TV shows that have spoof titles parodying real-life movies. In Battle Network 1, we can see some posters on the Dentown Movie Theater advertising Attack of the Killer PETs and Upgrade Impossible 3, starring Rom Cruise. That's clearly a parody of Mission Impossible 3, starring Tom Cruise, and Attack of the Killer Blank is a common horror or B-movie title. We also hear about the Bond Bunch, who seems to be a reference to the Brady Bunch, but starring the Bond family from Mega Man Legends. I would 300% watch that show. In Battle Network 4, when we reach Castillo, if you examine the pirate ship, you will see either a diorama based on Peter Pan, which is a spoof of Peter Pan, or another production named Tidemic Ghost. And while this title doesn't match a particular movie that I know of, the figures here seem to be a direct reference to Pirates of the Caribbean, with the three humans bearing resemblance to Will Turner, Captain Jack Sparrow, and Elizabeth Swann. Then, in the Access episode Video Man Returns, the Japanese version of the episode heavily features a movie called Star Potter, referencing Star Wars and Harry Potter, and the sequel, Star Potter Reloaded, adds The Matrix Reloaded into the mix. The dub goes out of its way to very specifically not reference the title, but keeps telling us that Lan really wants to rent this movie on VHS and is having a hard time finding copies of it. Truth be told, if there was a movie that was wizards versus space-themed battleships versus a virtual reality and it wasn't a parody, I'd love to watch that one as well. There might be a few more, and I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting at least one, but these are a handful of the movie parodies mentioned in the series. Just some fun trivia that's a little more obscure than some of the other points we have. Most of the fanbase that I've interacted with doesn't spend a lot of time replaying Battle Network 1 after their first completion, and the title of the movie was only in the Japanese version of the episode, so I think this belongs on Tier 3. Weird jack-in ports. Anybody who's played any of these games for any length of time will know exactly what this means. Just take a look at any given Battle Network game. There are countless weird, random, or just unnecessary jack-in ports that have cyber worlds that lead to nowhere, but sometimes have hidden items or shops. Places like the Gargoyle statue on Hades Isle, or the wall on the World 3 Fortress in Battle Network 3, the Guardian statue in Akuden in Battle Network 2, suits of armor, picture frames, door frames, or toilets, etc. One that played a part in an actual level was a canteen that held a bomb detonator in Battle Network 2. I've seen this meme floating around, and I think it's 100% accurate. A very common piece of trivia and a fun discussion point. Tier 1. Whiskey Rap Battle. Battle Network 2 got away with a lot of stuff that E-rated games normally wouldn't. One of the most infamous moments from this game among the fanbase is the Whiskey Rap Battle. During the Magnet Man scenario, you'll be on a plane headed back to Electopia when a killer spider gets loose and you have to set a trap for it, and you need to use whiskey as bait. You go to first class to get some, and the guy on the couch refuses to give you any unless you rap for him. This is extremely cheesy and cringy, but I love it. After you show him that land has bars, he gives you the booze. Why has this not been turned into a Friday Night Funkin' mod yet? Fans of Battle Network 2 will remember it fondly, but those who skipped 2 might not, so I think Tier 3 seems proper. Grayzar. This is the fan name of the fusion of Gregor and Falzar. In both the Rockman EXE anime and the Mega Man NT Warrior manga, Gregor and Falzar merge together to form a Super Psy-Beast, and in the anime, Cross-Fusion Mega Man can merge both his Beast-out forms as well. However, in the games, the two beasts never merge. I also think there might have been a missed opportunity to have Grayzar Beast Mega Man in the manga, because when Base gives his power to Mega Man, shouldn't that have given him Falzar's power too? Oh well. I think this one should go on Tier 2, since it's not really an obscure idea. I remember people talking about a Gregor and Falzar fusion even before that arc of the manga was released here in the United States, and the Beast arc was never localized, so fans have been talking about this idea since Battle Network 6 was first released. Air Hockey. A battle chip that appeared in the second half of the series. This chip is notoriously overpowered, especially in Battle Network 4. The chip acts like a real air hockey puck, ricocheting when it hits an edge and bouncing around. With a simple area grab and some attack ups, you can dish out devastating amounts of damage, especially since in Battle Network 4, full synchro can be achieved without countering an enemy, so rapid firing this chip back to back could easily double the damage output. Combine that with Metal Soul and Night Soul's A-button charge ability, and air hockey trivializes most difficult enemies. Except for Duo Nebula Gray. This is a meme in and of itself, being completely fair and balanced. Well known enough to be towards the top, so I say tier 2. Rockman EXE references in other works. This one is kind of a broad category, but I think they're still worth discussing. There are a handful of times when Rockman EXE in various forms, games, and anime have been referenced in other works, including Lunar Lux, Restaged Dream Days, and Are You Okay with a Slightly Older Girlfriend? Lunar Lux is an indie game on Steam that takes influence from Mega Man Battle Network, and one of the TV screens shows Mega Man Battle Network 6 on it, as well as Lan and Shad's PETs on the wall. You can also find a poster of Star Force Mega Man and another one of Mega Man EXE with some character I can't identify. I think that's Roxy from Pokemon Black and White 2? In Restage, there are a few times when one of the characters makes homage to the original Jackie animation used in the early seasons of the anime. In the light novel and manga, Are You Okay with a Slightly Older Girlfriend?, the characters are talking about the Game Boy Advance and eventually mentions Mega Man Battle Network. This info was shared by the Rockman EXE Zone on Twitter. The references apparently start in Chapter 3, and they are seen again in Volume 6. A few different names are tossed around during translation, from Mega Boy NT Warrior to Mega Man NT Warrior to Rockman EXE, so I'm not sure how it's actually localized. Either way, the reference is clear. I've heard that there is also a reference in Nyarko-san Crawling with Chaos, but I haven't been able to find that exact episode where the reference takes place. Reportedly, there's a line of dialogue that says, "plug in transmission," while one of the characters is plugging their phone into a speaker. I think this should go pretty far down the iceberg, maybe at tier 8. Anime and manga drawing references to each other is nothing new, but Rockman EXE is a very niche community, at least outside of Japan, so unless you are actively looking for these references, odds are that you might not even recognize one when you see it, unless you're a really diehard fan of that series. Invisible paths. It's not unusual for RPG games, or other games in general, to have invisible walkways that lead to secret treasures, or to serve as obstacles to overcome. However, Battle Network has one instance of invisible paths that is notorious in the fanbase: the Power Plant stage in Battle Network 1. In Elecman stage, most of the paths are invisible, and you can end up spending entirely too much time trying to find your way around. This on its own wouldn't be terrible, but there's a soft time limit. Because you're in the middle of a blackout, your PET's battery is dying while Mega Man is moving. On top of that, the dungeon requires you to use batteries to light up new paths to walk across, and each battery only gets 2 uses before needing to be recharged from a nearby Mr. Prog. This dungeon is so nefarious that it actually got nerfed in the Operation Shooting Star remake, with the batteries now having infinite power and the invisible paths being lit up by slowly blinking dots. But aside from those, invisible paths are scattered all over the rest of the series after the first game. Pretty common stuff. This goes on tier 1. Mr. Prog's hands. Believe it or not, the ears on top of a Mr. Prog's head are actually their hands. Yeah, according to this Mr. Prog in Battle Network 3, located in the computer in this door frame in Scilab, these are hands. Kinda funny. Well known to Battle Network 3 fans who explore every nook and cranny, but lesser known to everybody else. Because Battle Network 3 is the most popular in the series, I think this should go on tier 3. Battle Network eSports. As far as I'm aware, Mega Man Battle Network is the only series on the Game Boy Advance that is competed at in the esports sphere. Even to this day, through the use of internet-capable emulators, fans of the game can battle with players across the globe. The N1 Grand Prix, which took its name from the big net battle tournament in Battle Network 3, is the biggest online community for Battle Network PvP. At least it currently is, and probably will still continue to be, even after the Legacy Collection is released. There's actually quite a rich history behind Battle Network esports, and I'll link a video that gives a better explanation than I can. Most active fans who keep up with Battle Network news are likely aware of the M1GP's activities nowadays, as they played a pivotal role in keeping the community active for the past decade and a half, and they've come into the spotlight a bit more with the announcement of online PvP with the Legacy Collection, so I think this belongs on tier 3. EXE Fan Games. In addition to there being various ROM hacks of the Battle Network series, there are also several fan games that either take influence from Battle Network or are fan-made sequels or reimaginings. The most well-known of these is Battle Network Chrono X, which is essentially a fan-made Battle Network 7. It takes place after Battle Network 6, and Lan and Mega Man are thrown back into the fray when a new enemy appears. This project has been in development for over 10 years, and currently Demo 5 is available for the public to play. I believe the developers said they're on the verge of releasing Demo 5.1, which will be a big update. Rio and I played Demo 5.01 on stream, so you can check that out, but I recommend you play it for yourselves. Another one is called Mega Man Battle Network Overclocked, which is the first two scenarios of Battle Network 1, but done in 3D style. The developer stated that this is more so a proof of concept demo and that they do not have any intentions of making a full game, if I understand correctly. But stemming from that, I think there is also another 3D Battle Network 1 demo made by a separate team. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on this one. Another one that I just recently found out about is Mega Man Cosmic Network. From what I could dig up, this project is still a work in progress, and currently there's not a publicly available demo, but when there is one, I definitely want to check this out. Another one that's decently well known is Shanghai EXE Genzo Network, which is basically if Toho characters fought using Mega Man Battle Network gameplay style. This one is a PC fan game and not a ROM hack. However, due to unavoidable reasons, as the developer says, the game has been indefinitely cancelled, so the current demo that's up may be the last one that's available. This is another one that Rio and I plan to explore in the future. Some others that are a bit lesser known are Grid Force, Grid Masters, Tri-Wing, and N-Cycle Versus, all of which fight on grids similar to the Battle Network games. These are available on Steam. Not exactly a fan game, but One Step from Eden also uses a similar style of combat and is on Nintendo Switch. Another one in the similar veins is Phantom Rift, which is available on mobile. A video showcasing all of these was made by Debonair Livestreams, and I'll link the full video below. Most fans will likely know of Chrono X, and probably of Shanghai EXE, but the others, maybe not. I think this should go on Tier 5. This segment of the video is about updating the pre-existing entries, adding some new info to points that were previously covered. Legends references. In addition to the already mentioned references, some of the sound design seems to have been carried over in between series as well. Additionally, during Quiz King's quiz in Battle Network 2, one of the incorrect answers to the question about Gauss's brother is Hippopotamus Gauss, which is a reference to how in Mega Man Legends you can introduce yourself as Hippopotamus to the junk shop owner's wife. Nation Z. It's not likely, but it could be possible that maybe Nation Z is actually meant to be Zanzibar Land, a reference to the Metal Gear series, since Hideo Kojima does have a cameo in Battle Network 4. I mean, we're already referencing Boktai, so why not reference Metal Gear while we're at it? Another country we know next to nothing about is Nation R, which is mentioned in the Japanese version of EXE 1, and Wily mentioned that he wanted to launch a hacking rocket towards the nation's satellite to start the endgame. Its mention was not made in the English version of the game, however. Interestingly enough, though the Mega Man NT Warrior manga features Style Change, Double Soul, Chaos Unison, and Beast Out, the Cross System and Cross Beasts are never used. Base Cross appears, and though it does have Cross in its name, it's usually not counted as part of the Battle Network 6 style Cross System, since in lore it's more akin to a Double Soul than a Cross. The closest thing we get is the Navi marks that are used during the later chapters, which gives the user the abilities of the Navi that the mark is from, but they don't physically change appearance or change elemental attribute like the Cross System does. Some more info for the instruction manual segment. In the North American version of Battle Network 3's instruction manual, it shows the Navis from Network Transmission, despite them not being in the game. This adds a little bit of credibility to the Zero Battle rumor from back in the day. This isn't exactly from the manuals, but there was some box art for Mega Man Battle Network 4 that featured Cross Fusion Mega Man that was intended to be used for the PAL version of the game. As far as I'm aware though, the box art was never actually used. We already covered Operation Shooting Star, but I have a little more info to add to this one. At the end of one of the trailers for Operation Shooting Star, we can see what looks like Dark Mega Man appear, with some text that, when run through a translator, says, "Beyond time, EXEs are now revived." Even though this looks like Dark Mega Man, I don't think it actually is, because this image was used in advertising material for Mega Man Battle Network 2, so this means that there was planned to be at least an Operation Shooting Star 2, but it never came to be. This is most likely because apparently the launch of the game was a complete disaster, with the game being relegated to bargain bins after less than a month. This isn't that surprising though, since Operation Shooting Star was basically just Battle Network 1 with some small quality of life improvements in addition to the Star Force crossover, but on the whole, it's just not of the same objective quality as Battle Network 5 Double Team DS. Who knows if Operation Shooting Star 2 or 3 will ever happen though. Maybe if the EXE and Star Force Legacy collections sell well enough, we might get some OSS remakes on modern platforms too. Not likely, but we can dream. Some more info for the Navi Copies entry. In the Beast Plus arc of the anime, the professor created a copy of Zero called 01, who's basically just a mindless drone, and the only immediate physical difference was its right eye. This seems different from image data or the clones that were made of Stone Man and Blaster Man, because 01 seems to carry roughly the same amount of power as the original Zero. A small snippet to add to the Unified Timeline segment. Some more possible evidence for this theory could be the fact that Tadashi Ikari is practically identical to Thomas Light. In addition to that, both of them digitize their personalities and continue to live on as some sort of cyber ghost, with classic series Dr. Light becoming a recurring character in the Mega Man X series, and Tadashi Ikari appearing at least in Battle Networks 3 and 5. I don't necessarily think that this adds more credibility to the theory, but it is a nice reference and callback. I was given an interesting perspective on Mr. Match's absence from Battle Network 5. Maybe Mr. Match became a teacher as community service in order to reduce his sentence? It definitely seems like he should be behind bars given how many times he's broken the law, and he even tried again in Battle Network 4, so maybe they cut a deal and made becoming a teacher part of his parole and probation? I still wouldn't trust him, but I suppose it's possible. An alternative viewpoint to the Duo is Meteor G entry. What if Meteor G and the Crimson Dragon are meant to be the EXE universe stand-in for the evil energy entity the Duo was chasing in the classic series? As an energy, Crimson causes innocent EM beings to go berserk, so it's kind of like evil energy. An addendum to Copyman's entry. We may have a possible piece of art for Copyman's true form. I've heard it suggested that perhaps the Navi on the Navi Recycle chip is Copyman's base appearance, since the Navi Recycle effectively copies the Navi you last used and brings them back. While we've discussed unidentified Navis on some pre-existing battle chips, doesn't it seem kinda weird that for this chip specifically, they'd create a unique piece of art for a nameless character, when this chip only summons characters that have unique identities? Other battle chips like Balance, Marking, and Counter all feature Navis who have unique designs, and several chips like the Anti-Series, North Wind, and Coming and Going Roads feature generic Navis. But again, the designs already exist. So, going by our line of thought from earlier, if these unidentified Navis on these chips are unnamed characters, then maybe this unnamed Navi is actually Copyman? On another note, I forgot to mention this, but there actually is a sort of reference to Copyman in the anime. In the episode Chisausen Town, Noodleman, the Navi that belongs to the udon shop owner, shapeshifts himself to look like Gutsman and takes the name Nuggetsman, or Cutsman in the Japanese version.
Gutsman's the name!
Oh god, no! Adding this to Shademan's immortality. Interestingly, out of all the times that we have to kill Shademan, there's only one battle in the story where he's fought normally like a regular boss, at least as far as the canon games are concerned. And that is the fight in the Dark Chip Factory. Every other time there's a story-relevant fight, there's some condition tied to it, like needing Dark Chips to delete him, or him being in a liberation mission, which, as you know, has a time limit attached to it. Some more info for the Virus Breeder topic. Another possible offshoot of this is the fact that several times in the series, Navis will use viruses for battle, not only heal Navis, but also normal and security Navis. I guess in this world, viruses aren't necessarily evil and can just be used for combat if the situation calls for it. Also, in Battle Network 1, the Mr. Progs in the summer school in Dentown say that they used to be viruses that worked for World 3, but they were reformed along with Miss Yuri. So are Mr. Progs a type of virus as well, or are the viruses a type of Mr. Prog? I have another small update for the Vic and Blackbeard entries on the Iceberg. There are some art books called Rockman EXE no Himitsu and Rockman EXE no Subete. I'm sorry if I butchered the pronunciation, but these books contain some trivia that hasn't been localized, though based on the fan translation, they seem to confirm that Vic was in fact a meteorologist, and Blackbeard's real name was in fact Taihei Izuzaki. These books also state that Al Ferry, Chargeman's operator, was a train conductor who was always on time, and Mr. Press, Dustman's operator, is a student studying abroad from Netopia. These sources are cited on the MMKB. We previously discussed unknown Navis on battle chip icons, and we also have battle chips like Zeus Hammer, Old Wood, and Godstone. Firstly, who is Zeus.exe? Secondly, why does he use a hammer? I don't recall Zeus ever using a hammer in Greek mythology. I know that Thor from Norse mythology uses a hammer, and both he and Zeus are gods of thunder, but the hammer doesn't have electric properties. Just another odd occurrence, I suppose. But what about Godstone and Old Wood? Godstone's attack animation is very similar to Stoneman's Navi chip in Battle Network 1, and Old Wood basically attacks with Wood Tower the way Woodman does. But both of these count as summonable battle chips, where you need to have a hole in front of you to activate them. An orb drops from the sky, and the entity manifests from the hole before attacking. The only other battle chip in the game to do this is Lava Dragon, which is a fightable virus in the game, so are the Godstone and Old Wood entities actually viruses that were in an earlier draft of the game but were cut before its final release? Who knows? So we've already talked about Battle Network 4.5. It provides you with quite an array of playable Navis. But who is the canon playable Navi? Well, which of them is the only Navi who exclusively appears in this game? The answer to that is Starman. Okay, well that's not entirely true. Starman also appears in Network Transmission, and his name is on Epitaph in the Graveyard in EXE 6. However, every other Navi in the game has a canonical operator, except for Napalm Man because this came out before Battle Network 5, Junkman who was born from scrap, and Base who is a solo Navi with a fully fleshed out backstory, but he also is a fan favorite so it makes sense to make him playable. So, since Starman's operator is never revealed in Network Transmission, what if you were his operator the whole time? It would make sense, since Starman's inclusion was also part of a promotion with the Protoman version of the Battleship Gate, since it included his Navi data chip, but that means that you're the net criminal due to your involvement with the Zero virus incident, spreading fake vaccines and such. Looking at it in that light, you are now on a quest to redeem yourself by becoming an official and deleting other net criminals. Now, we all know that EXE 4.5 isn't actually canon, but still, if we were to try to rationalize who is the canon main character, I don't think this is a bad theory. Now, these aren't exactly region-exclusive toys, but here's some more interesting toy trivia for you. There are some unreleased NT Warrior figures that either got prototypes or promotional art for them, but they never hit store shelves. These include 5-inch figures for Burner Man, Shade Man, Freeze Man, Wood Shield, Aqua Custom, and Elect Team Style Mega Man, as well as minifigures for Aqua Custom Mega Man and Shadow Man. For the last two, I've actually heard conflicting reports. Some say they were released but were exceedingly rare, and others say that they were never actually released. There was also supposed to be a role-themed Battleship booster pack, but it never saw the light of day as far as I'm aware. On that note, we also have the North American Advanced PET-2, which has a prototype but it never went into full production. Just a little bit of fun trivia for you, the only Giga chips in the Advanced PET Battleship series to not get a physical chip were Signal Red and Black Barrier, if we don't include Duo since he was an e-reader exclusive. I'm not entirely sure why these two didn't get chips made though. According to the Mega Man knowledge base, LifeSync also apparently wasn't released in Japan, despite it being released elsewhere. Apparently, Torchman also got a Battleship booster pack in Mexico and Australia, and they're even harder to find than the Series 3 minifigures that I talked about previously. Update for Trailers Beta. This isn't on the video, but on some of the early promo material, there was an issue of Korokoro magazine that showed a dog named ... meaning that the character of Gao might have played a part much sooner in the series than in the final product. I'm not sure what the role of the dog would have been, but it makes sense, considering that Lan's home in AC/DC Town always has a doghouse. So, based on the description of Mega Man Jr. was created from Mega Man and Roll's data, I imagine that Mega Man Jr. might actually look like some offshoot of Roll Soul Mega Man, but maybe with a different color scheme. Another thing that not a lot of people seem to think about, if Mega Man Jr. was created from Mega Man EXE's data, aka Hub, then that means that technically Patch, his operator, is also his cousin, since he is Lan's son, and that would mean that Mega Man EXE is actually Patch's uncle. That's gotta be kind of awkward. In regards to the Go Nagai references, I was actually incorrect about Shin Getter Robo. Go Nagai did not do the story for Getter Robo, but he merely helped come up with the mecha designs for it. However, after the passing of Ken Ishikawa, the creator of the Getter Robo manga, Nagai continues to use Getter Robo in his works. I wasn't aware of the specifics, and when I looked up Shin Getter Robo references, I saw a book called The Works of Go Nagai, and it had Shin Getter Robo on it. So I simply took that at face value and lumped it in with Mazinger Z and Grendizer as possible references in the Mega Man franchise. There are other mecha references in the Battle Network series as well. In Battle Network 2, Gundam is referenced by the Quiz King as the series of Rondom. If we wanted to stretch logic here, then perhaps the legendary program Advance in the anime could be an homage to the Shining Finger sword from G Gundam? Nah, probably not. But X using Shining Finger in Day of Sigma is definitely a G Gundam reference, but this Iceberg is about Battle Network, not X, so I'll leave that topic for later. An update for the Navis in the Real World entry. There's also Mr. Prog hiding behind one of the jack-in ports in the Mother Computer section of Scilab in Battle Network 2. Not a Navi, but still, a cyber person who shouldn't be in the real world. While I was initially writing that section of the Iceberg, I was racking my brain trying to remember where this Mr. Prog was. I knew there was a Mr. Prog or a normal Navi who appeared in the real world in Battle Network 2, and I thought that it was in Alkuden Valley, but I guess I was misremembering. Either way, I couldn't find it in-game or find footage or images of it, so I just didn't mention it until Yuma Overstar reminded me of where it was. So, thank you for that. And with that, we close out our Rockman EXE Community Collaborate Iceberg Part 4. These entries and updates will be compiled with the other parts into the full-length Iceberg chart that will be released in the near future. There are a few other entries that need to be updated or corrected, and these additions will be made in the upcoming video. There were also other submissions that didn't make it into the Iceberg for one reason or another, but I think that they're still worth going over, so I'll be making a video going over those as well, after the final Iceberg video is released. Once again, thank you all so much for your contributions, and stay tuned for the final compiled Iceberg Explained video. This has been Blade Cross EXE with Flashing Blades Productions, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.